with abilities focused around slicing enemies with broken glass, enraging enemies to fight visions of their own reflections, or coating enemies in molten glass to stop enemies in their tracks. Gara fills both offense and defense roles well, but is more aimed towards defense. Her first ability, Shattered Lash, shoots out a deadly shard of razor-sharp glass at an enemy, dealing heavy damage and further boosted by mods on your melee weapon. The ability can also be held, albeit a bit awkward, by holding the ability instead, which will whip a semi-hard glass whip at all enemies in front of her and knocking them over. This ability is decent for a first ability, and while clunky to use, Arcing Strike can prove extremely deadly versus the infested. Her second ability, Splinter Storm, causes a halo of glass to form around allies or herself, granting up to 90% damage reduction for a decent amount of time. These floating shards also inflict deadly ticks of damage per second to enemies who are near, as well as causing said enemies to be pushed away. If aiming at no enemy or ally, she will cast the ability on herself, causing the glass on her Warframe to break apart to form the floating shards that protect her. This ability is a solid and straightforward damage reduction ability. Her third ability, Spectral Rage, uses ghostly mirrors to enrage enemies, forcing them to fire at their own reflections in the mirrors. Each mirror destroyed will shatter and damage enemies inside, and shrink the radius of the spinning mirrors itself. This ability is actually rather weak, unfortunately, and I consider this to be Gara's weakest ability. While it can be useful at times, the damage is fairly low, especially against armor, and the attraction radius for enraging enemies is low, and as a result it has very little crowd control capabilities. It also costs as much energy as her fourth ability initially does, an ability that is far more useful. This may change in the future, however. Her fourth ability causes Gara to project a wall of molten glass in a ring around her, quickly expanding and coating enemies that touch the expanding ring of glass. Either when the duration ends, or if Gara presses the ability again, the ring stops and hardens, forming a wall of glass that blocks enemy projectile fire from either side, but allowing ally fire through. In addition, enemies coated with this molten glass will now begin to slow, cooling down and hardening as the glass cools, forcing them to watch in horror as Gara and her allies wreak havoc on them. If Gara chooses, she can continue to hold the ability for as long as she can be allowed to, allowing enemies to travel through the ring and coat as many enemies as possible at the cost of draining more energy per second. This ability has a number of synergies, including being able to be shattered with her first ability, similar to how Frost Snow Globe can be shattered with his freeze ability, although the damage it causes is fairly weak to armored units, and the wall is better as a wall. Casting her fourth ability will also instantly refresh the duration of her Splinter Storm on herself and allies, potentially allowing Gara to only cast the ability a few times in a mission, which saves energy. Even better, if Gara is in the air from a bullet jump or simply standing on something above the ground, the ability will also increase in height, lowering down to a good distance and creating a massive protective wall. This serves almost the same protection as Frost Snow Globe due to this, however the wall is invincible to damage other than nullifier bubbles, which may instantly destroy it. Keep in mind that enemies who are turned to glass are immune to status effects like Slash, similar to enemies frozen by Frost or turned to stone by Atlas. Also, another thing I have not seen anyone really mention, while you can fire weapons through it and walk right through the wall, it does act as a physical wall for maneuvers, and you can actually run across it as long as you aim at the wall when running. While you can't latch onto it and you can still fly right through it, this is a neat little feature that I found out while testing. As for the builds, I actually only have one, because I was satisfied with this build after using her for a while. She gains a bit of power strength, a good boost to range which helps a ton with her fourth ability, some efficiency to save on energy, as well as a good boost to duration which benefits all of her abilities, but most importantly allows enemies to be cased in glass for up to 30 full seconds. Gara was hard to understand for me at first, but after 2 Forma, I can safely say she is a ton of fun, as well as being incredibly effective for defense. Just be sure to keep nullifiers and parasitic eczemas away from her. Thanks for watching.